My friend, welcome to the world's best kept secret podcast, a podcast that brings you exclusive interviews from experts all over the world with life-changing work that you didn't even know existed. I'm your host, Prima Jobs, a partner for those that are ready to take their life-changing work in front of those whose life or business depends on it. Please follow or subscribe for more. Before I got married, my friends used to make me not talk when they talked about kids and work and motherhood and how hard all of that is. And so whenever they started that topic, they would say, Prima, please don't be contributing. What do you know about motherhood? What do you know about work? And my point was always that I think that going through life is a choice. I think that going through motherhood and staying sane is a choice. I believe that going through life and thriving or not is a choice. I have always believed that. But my friend said I was ignorant. But indeed I was, because I wasn't married, I wasn't having kids, I didn't know better. But as I started to, when I got married and I started to go through this, I realized you can be married and not try to kill your spouse, or you can be married and talk through stuff. And I'm always searching the universe for proof of the things I believe. And today is one of those days. My guest is all about how can you juggle being a mom and being employed and experience it all? How can you find the joy? How can you find the experience of it as opposed to just dreading it? You know, moving through it. Oh my God, when does childhood end? Like, when do I stop being a mother? What about the other way of how do I thrive through it all? I'm always asking the universe for proof that somehow what I believe is true. And I think that subconsciously, I'm always looking for proof that you can have a fulfilling life, whether you have, I don't know, 5 or 10 kids, and you can still have a job, and you can still enjoy your relationships, and you can still breathe through the day, and you can still be calm. And that is where we are going today. That is where we're going today. If you know a mom that is having struggles to balance between being a mother, a present mother, having a job, you may want to share this and ask them to join us along today's conversation. My guest today is Charlotte Haggie, all the way from South Africa. Charlotte, welcome to the world's best kept secret. First and foremost,
thank you very much for having me here today. I am thrilled to be on this podcast.
Before we dive into all things motherhood and work and regulating the emotion, I wanted to introduce Charlotte in a very nice way because she has a very cool bio. She's a personal trainer, wellbeing coach, and a dedicated mother of 2 that she believes is more important than any titles she holds. She's been in the school of hard knocks, which means she's had to go through all of these things that she teaches. Her tears, her frustrations, and everything in between, being a mother and working. She's transformed her hard-earned lessons into a joyful journey, and now she advocates for health, presence, and success in professional and personal realms, especially for mothers. She specializes in self-regulation and empowers moms to navigate the chaos, anxiety, and frustration of wearing the multiple hats that they wear. Her teachings emphasize the profound impact of emotional state on our behavior and our outcomes. By mastering regulation, Charlotte believes that you can find peace, energy, and fulfillment, which leads to a thriving relationship and ultimately gets you to your desired life balance. Charlotte, what did I miss there that you actually believe in or do for people?
I think that you have encapsulated it all beautifully, and absolutely this longing to show mums, working mums all around the world, that it doesn't have to be a stage or a season of life that we have to get through, that it can really be a season filled with joy and love and excitement about the way that we live our lives. It can be a time where we succeed in our careers and in being a mother and in being a person, and also in being healthy and looking after ourselves.
Mm, I like it. And I see that Charlotte has a young one trying to come in. I hope she insists. So we have a third person on the podcast. I hope she
Yes,
insists
this
and
is all
doesn't go.
all about being a working mom. Can you say hi? She's going to go inside now, and I'll see you in a bit. The juggles of working motherhood.
Yes, yes.
It's showing us that we can do this juggle and get the things that we need. We can have our needs met and have that time where we look after ourselves so that we can show up calm, peaceful, that it can be easy, that it doesn't have to be something that we're striving for. I think that's really the key, is it doesn't have to be the stressful, striving, unfocused, distracted time. It can be calm, peaceful, and as easy as we want, really.
I want to dive into your story for a moment. But before that, I just remembered a lady who was, her name is Christine, I believe. She's married to a pastor and she's a pastor. And she had 5 loud boys. And somehow every time she pressed live and went live on Facebook, the boys started fighting. They started throwing bread all around. They started screaming. And she was all like, you can find peace in all this. And she just didn't fight it. She left the boys to go crazy. And her live videos were like my favorite to watch because she didn't care who was crying, who was fighting for food, and the husband would show up in the middle of nowhere. And so I loved her for that. And she had an amazing tribe of people who were like, yes, this is it. And it goes to what you're saying, like in all of that, you can just find the joy and the beauty and the celebration, the experience of it all, rather than, oh my God. I want to dive into your story though. Like, how did you get here? How did we learn all this? Tell us about your experience, because I believe there's a mother whose, I don't know, whose peace today depends on your experience as a person.
So my story really starts, well, I mean, my story starts from childhood, where I was allowed go get it. I tried everything, and I started to develop my own stories about what I should be as I showed up in this world.
Mm,
And I tried all sorts of things. I tried to get into corporate employment, and I just found myself not fitting in, if you will,
mm,
and always wondering why, and being kind of really angry with myself and frustrated with myself that I didn't fit into the norm.
mm,
And then I actually did my master's degree in social development at the University College of London in London. And I went back to Zimbabwe, where I was born, and I started a little charity there of my own. And through that, obviously, charities don't pay a salary. And so I qualified as a personal trainer in order to supplement my income.
mm,
And in that kind of fascination with people, in the fascination of the children that I was helping provide early childhood development to, and watching their development, and then working with these clients who would come to personal training with me, I just realized how interested I am in human development and how we grow and how we develop and how we show up in the world. And we then moved to South Africa to start our own family. And I had decided already that I was going to become a life coach. And I was in the middle of my qualification when my first child was born. And he really has been my greatest teacher, because he has actually required me to slow down. He's
mm,
required it of me that I am calmer, that I'm more peaceful, that I'm more present. I realized once he was born that I don't think I've ever really been present.
mm,
And I've always been rushing and racing and moving from one thing to the next. But this child who depended on me so much actually required that I put myself aside and my own striving And in the midst of having this new baby, I was also trying to set up my business. And so trying to work and have a baby and work through my own stories in my head about what was going on. And so through that, really going through my own journey from this chaotic woman who at one point had 5 jobs and crashed cars. I always say my signature move of my old self was crashing cars because I was racing from one thing to the next. And I've shifted into a place of much more calm and ease, of being able to be present, of choosing where I spend my time, of looking after my own health, of being able to set boundaries, of, just finding real joy in my work and in my coaching, and finding huge gratification in being the mother to these now two children who have needs, and who I hope I'm able to meet, because I am more able to be calm and feel more in control and to know myself so much more so that I can give the best of myself to the world.
I love it. What was your turning point though? Like, when did you decide enough was enough? I'm going to figure out this self-regulation, or when did you decide enough was enough? I gotta be better for these kids. When did that happen for you?
Interestingly, it happened because my son really struggled to regulate. I mean, he was a baby, so absolutely understandably, but he just has much more sensitivity than, for instance, my daughter, who is much more able to manage her emotions. He experiences these huge, overriding emotions. And from kind of toddlerhood, well, when he first started walking, I realized that I was going to need to sit with him in these big emotions. And because of my coaching and kind of getting to understand theoretically a little bit more about what was going on in children's brains as they're growing, I started to do a lot more research into what was happening for him so that I could manage myself in relation to him, so that I didn't get angry and frustrated. And we sat on the kitchen floor, sometimes 45 minutes. I would just sit with him and wait for him to pass through this tunnel of his own emotions. And in that space, really learning how to grapple with my own feelings and my own frustrations and my own, I should be doing this or I should be doing that, but actually learning to just be with him in that moment. And that really started to inform then how I began to show up, how I wanted to show up. I wanted to be able to be there for him. I wanted to be able to be there for my clients. Really also with coaching, learning how to be present for my clients, moving from when I first started coaching, my brain exploding all over the place with so many thoughts, really being able to calm that down so that I could focus on what my client was saying, what she was needing, and how I could support her to get her from A to B. So that kind of, those two kind of came together into this culmination where I then shifted my own being into a different way.
I love that. Like, sometimes something external forces you to be better. When you're living by yourself and you have no kids and you're not married, like when I was living by myself, didn't have nobody depending on me. I was just always calm, and I always thought I figured things out, and I would go through, without arguing with anybody. And then I got married and realized I couldn't do that anymore. I realized I was getting triggered, and I was like, geez, now I can imagine when the baby comes, that's another level of my waking up from, oh my God, maybe you have trauma, or maybe it's interesting. It's interesting. I know you work with women who have troubles getting to a place of um, going through this. Like if I had a job and I had to be a mother, which always most times comes with being a wife and all of these things. And I was getting a little bit overwhelmed and going, geez, when does this season end? I know that you do work with those women, but first of all, what exactly is the problem that women come to you with? What are they struggling with? I want the listener to understand if her work is for you or not. Or I also want her to understand, like, who can I share this with? So I want you to kind of explain to me right now, like, who is coming to you and what problem do they have?
Absolutely. So the person who's coming to me for some support is the working mum who is feeling overwhelmed, who is feeling flustered. She is experiencing just this kind of continuous, there's this continuous to-do list, there's this continuous expectation on her. She always has this kind of hidden stress in the back of her mind of that to-do list. She's trying to balance her time, keep her priorities in check. She has this overload of information from work, from the children. She's overstimulated and she's desperately trying to do her best, but so often finds herself feeling guilty, feeling anxious, feeling like she's not doing enough, feeling like she's potentially failing in both places, at work and at home. She's exhausted. She has no margin to just kind of be. She has no space to do anything for herself. She tries things and she's unable to keep consistent because she's just being pulled in 1,000 different directions. And really, she's just longing for peace. She's longing for a space where, or not even a space, but a life where she can feel at ease, where she has a bit of time for herself. She has the capacity to manage all the things that are thrown at her. She's longing to be able to set boundaries, to be able to make choices instead of just this kind of chaos, this disorganized, just moving through the day running her rather than her running the day. Does that answer the question?
I love what you do, Charlotte. The way that I would summarize it is there's a mother out there that is doing everything they can, using every minute God sends to them to do something, but it doesn't seem to be enough. And they just wonder if there is a better way to go through the same 24 hours they have and do it all and feel better somehow. Feel like, okay, I'm winning at work or I'm winning at home or I'm winning for my, like she feels drained. She feels her kids are not getting enough of her. So she has mom guilt. And she feels like even at her job, she's just surviving or existing. And she's really spending every second of her life that God is sending to her to make something happen. And so she's wondering, like, is this all or is there a better way? I love that place where she's at. And take me through that process of moving me from exhaustion, overwhelm to peace, calm, joy, and hopefully even seeing some days when I can go to the salon. Because I have a friend who no longer thinks she has time for the salon or time for a nap or time for buying creams. And I'm like, woman, this is your second baby. What happens after 7 babies? And she's like, God help me, I don't have the capacity for 7. So if she was watching this, help me through that process of, moving from that place to the place where there's actually enough time in the day to do the things that matter.
So I think that what often happens is that we think that we need to change our behavior. So she often comes to me saying, I need to shout at the children less, or I need to focus more, or I need to get more done. She's looking at the behavior that is leading to some kind of result. And my work with my clients is to go deeper than that. What is happening if you like, the behavior, the things that we're doing, and the result that we're getting are kind of above the iceberg of who we are. But underneath the iceberg are our thoughts and feelings, and also our physiology, the kind of the motion of energy within our bodies that leads us to a particular feeling. So, the feeling of anxiety might come with a high heart rate and a churning stomach and sweating palms. And that energy, that physiology is causing her to be anxious, which is causing her to think in a way that means that she then behaves in a certain way. So when we are lashing out at the children, or not able to finish a report properly, that's because of a behavior. But underneath that, there's so much more. And my work is to help my mum really go in there and look at what is happening for me underneath that iceberg, build the awareness of what's going on. So we use various tools to help to build that awareness. And then we look at, okay, so what are the choices that she wants to make or she needs to make in order to get the result that she wants? And from there, we then look at, okay, how do we build her resilience? How do we get her strong enough? How do we build up her capacity, her inner battery to be able to stand steadfast when things are being thrown at her, when the stresses of life come at her? She's not knocked down by them. She's so strong in her mental capacity and her resilience that things can be thrown at her and she can choose how she responds to them rather than just reacting to what's going on outside of herself. So that process is, yes, building awareness of where she is, what's happening for her now, and then creating an idea of where she wants to go. What would be the ideal, the perfect, if you will, kind of A grade Prima? So say you came to me and you said, this is where I am, and A, if I were to give Prima an A, this is how she would live her life. This is how she would behave. This is how she would feel. This is what life would look like. And then we look at, okay, how do we develop a path from Prima today and A graded Prima who is experiencing life in this peaceful, calm, joyful way, and how is she showing up in the world? And we then build the path from A to B and build the resilience to be able to manage life along that path.
I'm taking notes at this point. I am wondering, let me read for you and you can tell me if I'm missing something. So the first very thing is awareness. Is that awareness of beneath the iceberg? Or is it the awareness of, okay, every day I wake up and I serve my kids and every day I am in this reaction, anger, triggered. What is the awareness? Is it the awareness of what's happening underneath, or is it the awareness of my current state and what's happening to me every day externally? Because I don't even know the internal stuff. At this point, I only know that, you know what, yesterday I almost shot my husband. The other day, I almost threw my kid on the floor. The other day, I screamed at my boss. Something is happening and I do not know what's happening to me, but I seem to be a walking time bomb. Is that the discussion, or is the discussion of, all right, Prima, so let's go beneath that and understand, like, why is that happening? What is the discussion in point number one? Is it the surface, or do you say this is the surface, but really underneath, Prima, this is what I see for you? What is the discussion there in point number one?
I think it depends on where she is. So sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, I have a terrible relationship with my children and I'm flailing at work and I need your help. And we will then start to build up the awareness of, okay, so what is happening in your behavior above the iceberg that is causing you this result of this relationship, or is causing you the result of these challenges of work. So first of all, we're looking at the challenges. What are the challenges here? The challenges are generally the result that we're getting. So that's above the iceberg. And then we're looking at, okay, so why are these challenges here in terms of our behavior? What am I doing, or what is Prima doing in order to get that result?
Okay.
And then we can dig a little bit deeper. Then we start to get curious. And I love, one of my values is curiosity. Let's go deeper and look at, why is Prima doing these things? What's happening for Prima below the iceberg that is causing this reaction above the iceberg, or this way of being above the iceberg?
I like
When
it.
we get in a little bit deeper, we can start to then really get to grips with what's happening and what needs to change.
So good. The first thing is like, okay, Prima, where are we right now? What's happening in our world? You know what, Charlotte? I am like a walking time bomb. God help anyone who comes in my way, they're dead. The other day, I had a beautiful woman on the show who said, you know what, Prima, I knew things were bad when I drove straight through a traffic light, a red one. And I almost killed a puppy, like someone's little dog. That is when I knew that I needed somehow to stop and control my life and change what was happening for me. And so that is the conversation, what's happening. And then, like, beneath that, what really is causing. So the self-awareness of what's happening and where it's coming from. I love that position because it's really empowering, because most times we don't really know that. Like when I'm triggered, my husband is the best one at that. I go, okay, Prima, what happened? What was that about? Where is that coming from? Which is, for me, very good, because it shows me that maybe I need some healing. Maybe I have some trauma to be done. Maybe there is something in there that, is being triggered. But the awareness of, you know what, this is what is happening. I like that. The second question is like, what do you really want? What would you want to see happening? Do these women always know what they want? Like exactly, precisely? Or are they like just something different? Like, are they like precise, clear of what they want?
No, and that's part of the work, I think, is that if you don't know what you want, how can you make a change? And so we spend time looking at, and sometimes for them it's really hard. Sometimes I will get them to write themselves a letter in a year's time, and it will take them a few weeks of me kind of encouraging them. And even that is data. If you are struggling to write that letter to yourself about where you want to be, first of all, why don't you, or do you not know where you want to be? And if not, then we work on, okay, let's work on that. But second of all, what is stopping you? If you kind of have an idea, a lot of people are really held back from writing that letter because they're maybe scared that they'll never meet that mark, or that they'll, even writing the letter, what if I don't get there? What if I fail in getting there? So there's this, again, it's fascinating data. There's the fear of failure. And that is all happening underneath the iceberg. So even in that step of looking at what we want, we can start to see what's happening underneath the iceberg if it's difficult to write that letter. So yes, a lot of people come, and part of the reason that they are stuck in this space is that they actually don't know where they want to go. And so my job is to support them in figuring that out. And one of the things that I really want to stress here is that my clients are all the expert in themselves. I don't come in and impose any of my thoughts or suggestions or advice. My job is purely to help them to unravel what's going on inside of them. So I am here to reflect, to observe, to ask questions that allow them to, I love to think of our brains almost like we put our brains in a petri dish and we open up our skulls and look at them under a magnifying glass. So my job is to help her to just unpick what is going on in her brain, and she comes up with the answer.
I like it. So step one is awareness. We want to know what's happening externally and educate what is happening on the internal so that you actually really know what you're working on. The second one is be clear of what you would really want. Like, okay, what type of mother do you want to be? What type of employee do you want to be? Do you even want to be working in that company? What type of wife do you want to be? Like, what exactly would you really want? Like, what's the dream? Because working towards a dream you don't have is the fastest way to going in any direction. You know, there's a saying that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And so I love the third part, which is now we're going to move you from this reaction place to this responding place. So we're going to change the mechanism from reacting, which is usually what you're doing, to responding. And I like how you said we're going to build the resilience so that even in the midst of a storm, you have the strength to stand on the side and make a difference decision. I want you to dive a little bit deeper into that part. Give me some practical stuff that I can do today to build my resilience. I would love to go a little bit deeper into that part. Exactly how do you build resilience? Because the world happens, you know, life still happens. The kids will still do something that I probably want to kill them for. My husband will still do something and I feel like cutting off his head. But like, how do I, in that storm, stand tall on the ice and go, I got this? Give me some of this practical stuff that I can do today. Or take me through that process of what are some of the tools that you use with these women?
So there are, if we're looking at above the iceberg, there are these behavioral changes that we need to make. So we're going to say, okay, so perhaps, yes, I need to leave my job, or I need to not shout at my husband, or I need to drive slower so that I don't crash my car, or I need to focus. And so we're looking at, okay, what are the behaviors? What are the practical things? Maybe in order to have more time, we need to get up earlier. Maybe we need to stop scrolling through social media. Maybe we've got to change behavioral patterns. So underneath the surface then is where we build the resilience, because where we get knocked over is that, for instance, I used to have a plan for my week, and I would have everything planned out, and then say a teacher phoned me up and said, the child is sick and you need to come and fetch them. And my whole plan was blown out of the water, and I got myself into an absolute state, and I would fetch them, bring them home, and be completely unable to focus because my systems were now, or my timing was now out, and I wasn't going to get everything done. And I was now, even just that small thing sent me reeling, and I wasn't resilient. Today, something can happen like that, or something can happen, and it's almost like I couldn't even hold a 1 kg dumbbell of stress at that stage. And now you can throw 20 kgs of stress at me, 50 kgs of stress at me, something can come at me, and I have built the resilience. So building the resilience comes in shifting our physiology. There are many ways to do it. And obviously, when I work with my clients and I take them through my program, I'm offering them a space. There's an amazing woman called Nancy Klein who creates in organizations. She has a book called Time to Think and a program called Time to Think, where she creates a thinking environment. How do we create a thinking environment for ourselves? One where we can think clearly and rationally make good decisions. Because what happens for us when stress is thrown at us is that we turn, the stress is a threat. And so we move from a logical, practical, rational adult into that state of fight or flight, that state where our prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of our brain, is actually shut down. If you were to come across a lion in your path, in days gone by and you thought too much about it, you would be eaten. So we get to that point. We become toddlers ourselves and we don't think rationally. We don't think clearly. And so I help people through various techniques that they have to practice to build the muscles of their brain, if you will, their kind of mental muscles to be able to ensure that they keep that prefrontal cortex turned on even under a great amount of stress. So we use breathing techniques, we use conversations, we create the strength and the capacity by through that awareness. What are my thoughts that are stopping me from doing things or are causing me to do things, and what do I need to think differently? So we change the narrative. You know, a lot of things like instead of I should or I must, we change the narrative to I get to or I want to. You know, little things like that can have such a huge impact on the way that we feel. So there are various techniques. It's difficult for me to really pin down, but my program takes clients through this process of shifting out of an experience of anxiety or overwhelm or frustration or stress into that place of calm and ease through the changing of our physiology, the way we feel and the way that we think, so that we can choose how we respond to the stresses of life, whether that be the traffic or the children screaming or a boss demanding a report or whatever might be coming our way.
I love where we are right now. I want to recap so you can kind of see how I'm receiving this. The first thing is awareness, externally and internally, like what's happening, like where are we? You know, the second one is like, okay, where do we want to be? What is the opposite of where we are? What is the desire? What is the thing that we really want? Clarity on that. The third is, how do we build resilience in a way that no matter what the world throws at us, we still have the empowerment to decide and choose our behavior. So, for example, the things I wrote is, someone might come in and they're like, you know what, I want to be more kind to my husband. I want to drive slowly. I want to be nicer to my kids. I want to be more gentle with myself. I want to be mindful when I consume social media. And out of those, you may decide, oh, maybe you need a different job. You know, if the job demands that you work 15 hours a day, maybe that's a little bit out of practicality. Maybe you need a different business model. Maybe instead of trying to coach 30 clients one-on-one, maybe now is the time for a group so you can, you know, take back some time for yourself. Maybe you need a drop-off list, you know, maybe you don't have to be doing everything you're doing right now, because it's amazing how many things people think they should be doing. I'm a practical example. I will sit here for hours and I'll be looking at the dishes in my sink and going, yeah, we'll be fine. I am not under any pressure whatsoever to have the neatest house. Like today's recording day, so it's not my priority. And it's totally fine. When I'm done with my recordings, I'll get to it. And so what I really understand is we're going to have to build this mental toughness, because it's not like life won't happen. Life will happen, but how we respond to that may change. So instead of reacting, we want to build a mental capacity to respond. And some of these techniques are like breathing techniques. Is it having conversations with yourself? Or what type of conversations are we having here?
Those conversations, I think, are shifting conversations from degradation. You know, I think a lot of us talk to ourselves in a degrading way.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's courageous conversations as well, though, outside of ourselves. Like, how do I go and have a courageous conversation with my boss and say, actually, these hours don't work for me? But what are the thoughts? What are the conversations I'm having inside my head that make it impossible for me to go and have that conversation, to go and do the things that are actually going to make my life better, the life of my children better, the life of my team better.
I love the saying that everything that we want is on the other side of a hard conversation. And that can as well be a conversation you're having with yourself. So I like where that is coming from, like having the conversations that need to take place for you to move from this state to that state. Then being able to build capacity and changing the narrative. I think I like this one, which is more like, okay, so you had dirty dishes in the sink all day. What does that mean about you as a wife? Well, nothing. It just means I was busy. It just means maybe I need a house help or whatever. My husband is very good. When I say, "Oh my God, I didn't fix dinner," I was like, "No, sorry, just do the podcast." Like he doesn't care. He will show up and fix his dinner. And so I can decide, oh, I'm a bad wife. I didn't fix dinner. Or I can decide I'm just busy. Maybe we need a house help. Maybe we need takeaway. What's the narrative out of whatever? And I like when you said walking through those shoulds and musts and saying there's nothing like that. You get to choose what you do and what you don't do. I like where that is coming from. So now we're aware of what's happening right now for us, both internally and externally. We now are very aware of what we want. We've now started building resilience. We're now at a point where we know, oh, okay, we can actually respond as opposed to react. What are we missing at this point based on your signature framework? Are we missing something, or are we like, yeah, this is it? What am I missing there?
So this kind of last step is really, how do we embed this? Because we, often the clients that come to me are generally between 30 and 45. And, that's 30 to 45 years of developing a certain story, a certain way of being. And so it's like going to the gym and saying within 3 months of having a personal trainer, I should look like this and I should stay like this forever. It's the same thing. If we go back to eating junk food and all the things that we know are bad for us and stop exercising, our bodies are going to go back to the way they were. It's a continuous process. It's a process of catching ourselves when we're going back to old thinking patterns. It's a process of catching ourselves when we feel like our inner battery is depleting, when we find ourselves in emotional states that are draining. It's that practice of noticing, observing, oh, I'm here again, and then doing the gym, if you will, doing the bicep curls to keep that resilience up, so that when we are in a stressful situation, or where something is feeling heavier than we think that we can cope with, we can continue to build the resilience so that we can hold things that are heavy, so that we can kind of stand firm in that storm. So the last step is really just embedding it for the client and reminding them that this is a process. And often clients will say, well, what's wrong with me? Why am I still doing X, Y, and Z? And we have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to be patient with ourselves. We are building new muscles, and they are there. They've just been stagnant or dormant for such a long time that we really need to build them up again. So yes, that last step is just that, really implementing and embedding it so that that becomes the habit, and they can catch themselves when they're falling back into old habits.
I love it. So it's more like turning that into a lifestyle, building resilience for life, having habits, rituals, things you do to just build your mental toughness, the way we do the gym, the way we walk out in the gym and work out every day. We do the same for resilience, so that in the future, maybe the storm will change. Maybe it won't be the kids this time. Maybe it will be cancer, God forbid. Maybe it will be a loss of a loved one. You can build the resilience that even when you feel like the world has thrown everything at you, you can move through it. I strongly believe it's not what happens to us. It's what we do with it. It's our ability to bounce back. I strongly believe that's it. It's your ability to just bounce back from wherever, pick your lesson and just bounce back. I love that. I really love that. You've worked with women for so many years now. What is the hardest part of 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 being a mother and finding the joy in that process? What is the hardest part of not saying, "Oh my God, 7 years and I just want them to be over"? What is the hardest part of that process?
I think the hardest part of that is what we think of ourselves.
Mm,
I think that it is what we expect of ourselves. You know,
mm,
my story, part of my story is that I thought that my parents expected certain things of me, and I was trying to live a successful career for them,
mm,
and almost in gratitude for what they had invested in me and my education. And so when it came to my children, I was kind of torn between this longing to do the best for my children
mm,
and this need to succeed. And what was happening was that I wasn't doing either because I was in such a rush. I was in such a panic. I had such pressure on myself. I was
mm,
unfocused at work. I was chasing after all sorts of things. I was changing tack all the time. And then I was coming home. And because I wasn't succeeding at work, I was frustrated with the children. I wasn't blaming them, but I was unhappy and
mm,
I wasn't at ease. And
mm,
I think that that is a lot of it is that as working mums these days, we have expectations
mm,
and we put huge expectations on ourselves. I must be like this at work and achieve at work and succeed at work. And this is what that looks like. And this is the measurable of that. And I need to be at home and be this mother who gives attention and is present all the time and feeds all the right food and does it all well there. And this huge pressure that we have on ourselves that often is a story that we've developed as a
mm,
result of the stories that we've heard when we've been growing up. I think that that is a real challenge.
mm. I can understand. Like my friends, my best friends, they have this belief that being a mother means you have to give yourself away. It's the life of your kids. You have to pause your life. And they have it like I feel like they have this standard to what a mother should be. And I always tell them when I become a mother, I don't want this advice that you guys like. I don't want to be a mother the same way my mom did it because she did her motherhood. I want to do mine. And so I really believe that the conditioning, the stories, the standard, whatever we think motherhood should be, probably is the problem. But I have a question for you at the same time. How do we how do we deal with this conditioning? I saw my grandmother and I saw my mother and I saw my friends, and I didn't know for the longest time this has been motherhood. And if I'm to be honest, that's where I am right now. So how do I remove that conditioning? Which one of your tools, or is this a part of what you do? Like, how do we take away the conditioning that we have had for the last 40 years about being a mother and what motherhood is and success and I don't know, all of those things? How do we walk through that? What does that look like?
Part of that, I believe, is that idea of choice. You know,
Mm,
this is my choice for how I bring up my children. You know, we
mm,
we have been brought up in quite a stiff upper lip society where, boys don't cry and um, almost children should be seen and not heard. Whereas I am bringing up my children in a much more, if you will, gentle parenting way, in that I'm accepting my children's feelings and I'm sitting with them in it, and that is what is building their resilience. And I think that part of, if we want to build our children's resilience, we have to be resilient. And what does that look like? That looks like not falling prey, I think, to what the world is saying. So what we are hearing, what we are experiencing, from the point of birth, you must breastfeed, you should have a natural birth, all of these stories about what's best for the baby, what's best for you. My baby would have died had I not had an emergency Caesar, had I pushed on to have a natural birth. And I really struggled to breastfeed. And so then I could create these stories about myself immediately from that point. Oh, well, what kind of mother am I? I had a cesarean and I really struggled to breastfeed. And, from the stories that I've heard from out there, but I chose to shift my thinking to, I had a cesarean. I was so privileged to be able to have a cesarean and to have this baby who was very big and he was struggling to come out. And I was so privileged to have formula that I could feed him so that he could survive. And he is now a beautiful, healthy young child. And so I also think that one of the ways that we can get out of the stories that we've heard is to think about what we want for our children. My mission is not just for the mums. My mission is for the children who are going to grow up in an environment where their mother is available and present and finds joy and calm. And these children are going to see that that is an option. So when I am in a state, if I find myself struggling with my own resilience, what is it that I want for my children? I want them not to feel like this. I want them to experience calm and peace and joy. And yes, they can do everything, but they can't do everything right now. They've got to be boundaries. I want my daughter to know that she can set boundaries. I want her to know that she can work and be a mum. And how does that work? And I think that so much of it is looking at what are the stories that we have built up around ourselves to create this way of being, and what do we need to get rid of so that we can be that person, that A-grade person that we've written and spoken about.
I really like how you look at this. I have a very simple principle around life, and it happens on my timeline. When I wasn't married, my friends were like, "Oh my God, you're getting late," and I was like, "On whose timeline is that?" I will just wait for my time. And I think I was the last person to get married in all of my classes, and it was always okay. I believe things happen on your timeline. They can't happen your way. I believe that life can happen your way, but the fear to unlearn everything from, I don't know, 40 years ago to now, I think that can be really tough. The fear to say I am willing to do it my way, even if it goes wrong or whatever, I think that's a hard part. But I believe that everything happens on your timeline, in your way. It can happen in your way, on your terms. I believe that motherhood can happen on your terms. And whether you get a job, keep a job or don't, that's up to you. I believe that it's in your hands. Everything is in your hands. You get to decide. I don't know your situation. I don't know what your financial situation is, but I believe that ultimately we can make these choices. We can be different and we can take a different path. And I think it is okay not to look like everybody else in your generation and how they mothered and how they lived. And now I've had my friends saying, "Oh, so when is the baby coming? You've been married for a year." And I'm like, yeah, like maybe it's not on my timeline right now. When the right time comes, the baby will come, and I'm not worried about it right now. Maybe you should try IVF. And I'm like, no, my timeline, God's timeline. So I love your work. Tell us about the programs, the containers that you have to support women through this journey. Just tell us about maybe courses, maybe coaching. What do you have to support women behind the scenes?
So currently I am offering an 8-session coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
And that coaching program it's an individual one-on-one coaching program, takes the client through that whole process. You know, what is going on for me? Where am I? Where do I want to be? What do I need to do to get there? And then implementing it and making those changes. I am in the process at the moment of developing and will be launching in the next few months a 3-month container, group coaching container. I really believe that group coaching is a gift that we can give each other. It's a space where we can come together and see that we are not alone and learn from each other. So that container will look like videos with training and worksheets and, a space to really go deep. And we will then have group coaching where the participants will have direct access to me through the group coaching, but then also other coaching opportunities through a Facebook group, and also I will have a Google form that they will be able to fill in, and I will give them feedback on that form. So my aim is to have 3 touch points with me where clients can come and get coached. So there won't be individual one-on-one direct coaching, but there will be 3 touch points so that we can really support each other, and the client can do the kind of theoretical learning on their own through the videos. And then when they are at a touch point with me, get direct in coaching so that they can really get deep and really start to make changes happen.
I love it. So you can have a one-on-one type of coaching with Charlotte if that's your thing. I love one-on-one. I love one-on-one. But you can also wait for her group container. Group containers are always much more affordable. I actually love community. My perfect, I think, coaching model is when I can have a little bit of my one-on-one and a little bit of group. I know that's a hybrid. Maybe you don't have that, but that's my perfect one. I believe in the one-on-ones. I also believe in group. But I think that if you're listening to this, you can choose either or. What is the next step if I want to have a conversation around how you can support me?
I would love anybody who wants to have a little bit of a chat to see if I can help you to just drop me an email, info@charlottehaggie.com. I'm sure Prima will put the links in the show notes, but info@charlottehaggie.com. I would love to set up a 15-minute chat where we can look at what's happening for you and what might work for you best in terms of individual coaching or the group program. It's open for applications already, the group program, and I can tell you a little bit more about it if you want to come and set up a chat with me and find out about it. And I really would love just to have that chat and have an opportunity to see where I might be able to support.
Everything will be rightfully in the show notes. I will convince Charlotte to put a link to her calendar as well so that you can get yourself on that straight away. I'll also convince her to make it more than 15 minutes. So that is how you can meet Charlotte. Her social media platforms are also open. They will be in the show notes. You're welcome to connect with her. I know you are at a different level. Some of you, maybe you're ready to dive in which case email her, book a call. And maybe you're not, maybe your next best step is to follow her, and that's totally fine. And maybe your next best step is something else, whatever it is, it's okay to just be where you're at. Maybe one of your best steps is now to find something she's giving for free and take it. That's still fine, wherever you are, just start. And really, you could have been doing a million other things, including driving through a red traffic light. You have so much on your plate. You chose to be here. And I can't take that for granted. And I really want to give you your flowers for doing that. If you know one beautiful woman that could use some peace in her motherhood times, I'll be sending this video to my friends, 3 of them, who believe motherhood is a roller coaster and they just have to go through it. I'm the first one who's going to share this video with my 3 best friends. Who believe that you have to run or drive through marriage? Like, oh my God, I can't believe this is over. Maybe it doesn't have to be like that. I would love for you to share this episode with it. That is how we get Charlotte's message across to the right people. That is the thing that I would love for you to do today. The other thing that I would love for you to do is be a part of the community, be a part of what is happening. I believe that the world's best kept secret community is going to grow and get bigger than myself. And so I'd like for you to be involved. And you can be involved in different ways. You can rate, you can review, you can follow, you can subscribe. It really depends on what place you're watching this. And you can be one of those people that makes this grow from like zero. We started 2.5 months ago. And look where we have gone, 400 subscribers on YouTube. It's beyond what I expected, but it's happening. And so you are being a part of this, and I appreciate that. And please continue to be a part of this. You know, when you contribute, when you review, when you rate, when you comment, when you do those things, you give me the power to do bigger things. You give me the power to play a bigger game. You give me the power to bring on the most powerful guest there is. I can't do it by myself. But I know that you're with me on this journey. And I know that together we can take this platform to just another level. Thank you for today. I will see you very soon. But Charlotte, what are your last words of wisdom? I'd love for you to give us the closing one. But what are your last words of wisdom?
The one thing that I want to say to every working mum who is just finding it so overwhelming, so stressful, that, as Prima says, something that we've just got to get through, is I know it doesn't have to be like this. And I know that you can find a way of being that is peaceful, that is calm. You can find joy. And I just want to be able to help people do that. If it's not me that's helping you, go out and find it. But I know that I can help you to do it. But just go out and find a different way of being. Don't just race through this life. I want you to get to the end of your life and look back on it and say, wow, that was amazing. I did the best that I could. I gave of myself. I mothered well. I worked well. I had an incredible, successful, joyful life.
My goal with this channel, this platform, is that there will be an answer for life problems. There will be an answer for going through life, for thriving through life, for thriving through marriage, for thriving through motherhood, for thriving old age. For my goal is that the cream of the cream you can find here. And so if you're looking for privated trust solutions, you can come here and just pick the expert of your choice. There is help, there is support. It is all available for you. I am only a conduit. And I sincerely hope that this will help as many people as possible. Thank you for today. I will talk to you very, very soon. That is it, my friend. To listen to more exclusive interviews like this one, simply go to the world's best kept secret podcast.com and select interviews based on preferred topic.